Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays.
Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays.
Mystery Monday's coming round again, my friend, it's coming round again.
Round again.
Mystery Mondays, now we're on the radio. It's time for us to go to the soaring heights of DAB. It's Bullwinkle, Henry, Drew and me, sat in the studio getting ready for a mystery. It's Drew's turn, yes, it's Drew's turn today.
It's his turn.
Drew is balls deep in the synthesizer. Thank you, my friend, I cannot even comprehend the mystical enchantments of those keys, coming my way like a leaf on the breeze, exploring the mysteries of life, when I should be doing the dishes for my wife. Mystery, mystery, mystery Mondays. It's mystery fun days.
It's so fun.
Mystery, mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays. It's mystery fun days.
So much fun.
And we're bringing it again for you. Yeah, we're bringing it in once more for you. Yes, we're bringing these mysteries for you. It's time to fade out with some keys from Drew. Hell yeah, baby. Welcome to Mystery Mondays, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
It's our first Mystery Mondays on air.
On the radio.
Oh,
So far,
my.
I know. That's what everyone around the globe's saying right now.
We're on the radio.
We're on the radio because we made it.
The winds have
We
changed.
made it because we're on the radio.
Yeah, so I thought we'd switch things up a little bit. So we're going to be bringing out Mystery Mondays on DAB as well as on the internet, which means the only difference is going to be is that we're going to have to watch what we say a little bit more because usually, because we only release Mystery Mondays on the internet, we can like do naughty stuff like swear. But
Not anymore.
It's all right. Obviously, we are consummate professionals, and we are used to doing radio shows. So none of that folly here. We've got a special guest in the studio today, Henry. Thanks for joining us, Henry.
Good afternoon.
Henry is doing some work experience here, essentially, aren't you, Henry? So, what have you been doing so far? Just audits and stuff.
Pretty much lots of numbers.
Yeah. So a very different
Experience.
yes. Henry.
Yeah.
Going into some.
It's like yin and yang, isn't it? We've got opposites. So
Numbers.
in the company, we have opposites.
Yeah, it's got like, yeah, you got like what is it? Is it left or right side of the brain which is supposed to be all like logical in numbers? Do you think?
Is
it right side?
Is it your left side of the brain because it relates to your right side of your body? And
I think we've spoken about this before.
yeah,
haven't
and,
we?
then the
spoke
right
about it on the
side of your
pod.
brain is
Yeah.
like the left side of your body.
Yeah.
And it's more creative.
So you're exploring all sides of your brain, Henry. So you've had audits, numbers, and interpretive song. Yeah, it is. Well, I said, welcome to Mystery Mondays, everyone. If it is the first time tuning in, then it's a pretty self-explanatory show. Every week we bring you a different Monday. Different mystery.
Different Monday on a mystery.
Sorry, my brain's just mental. Sorry, guys. So yeah, it's Drew's turn to bring us a mystery this week. So Drew, over to you.
Oh, can I make a request?
Oh, of course you can, sir.
Of some maybe some
my.
panpipe mystery music or flute-like
Oh.
panpipey mystery
Say no.
music.
Oh, I'll tell you what I'm going to type in.
Oh, baby.
Peruvian ambiance.
Oh,
Yeah.
let's see.
Let's
see.
get some Peruvian ambiance
Yeah.
on this. Right. So we're going to get some atmospheric music in the
Gotta
background
be done, hasn't
to
it?
enhance this experience. Yeah, just also if it's your first time tuning in, so obviously we start every single week with a different song, which is pretty much made up on the spot. I just come up with some chords beforehand, show them to Drew, and it's all made up on the spot, really.
Yeah, a little bit of improvisation.
Yeah, the lyrics are always 100% improvised. Well, apart from once where I actually did sit down and write some beforehand, but that was literally
That
once.
was the metal song one.
That was which if you want to listen to that, which was hilarious, you will be able to find that on either our Mystery Mondays Spotify channel or on YouTube on our Pandora's Box channel. Okay.
Yeah, just type in Mystery Mondays. You can. We've got I think there's about 16, 17 episodes that we've done previous to this as well. So if you like this, you want to check out any of the old ones, then head over to there.
Yeah, and obviously, it's only really recently that we've actually got our own Spotify channel strictly for Mystery Mondays.
Yeah.
So it was
We're all on there.
Drew's idea to give us a separate channel, because obviously some people might just want to watch the mystery stuff, other people might just want to watch the Pandora's Box stuff, which is more all-encompassing. So now you can decide. If you just want to follow the mystery stuff, it's nice and neat and tidy. You can just go on Spotify, you can put that on if you're going on a super long drive or something, and you can just let the episodes roll. One mystery after another.
One mystery at a time.
That's right, baby.
Yeah.
Right, so do you want like relaxing Peruvian flute music?
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we're not going like dark today, we're going more...
Yeah, I reckon this is quite.
Nice.
This is positively mysterious.
Oh,
Nice.
I think. Maybe. I don't know.
I like how different that is to last week's
Yeah.
Axe Murderer.
Well, yeah, let's say yin and yang, man. You gotta keep it balanced. Yes. I'm stepping back onto the shores of Lima, in Peru, for this week's Mystery Monday. So yes, we're talking about this week on Mystery Mondays. We're talking about an architectural phenomenon that spans several different countries across the world. It is called vitrified stonework, and it is it is a work of ingenuity using technology. Maybe that could go down a little bit. Yeah.
So I'm on it. I was just finishing my sip.
So yeah, it's a work of ingenuity using technology that has since been lost to the human race.
Is that where the stones are so interlocking that you can't fit
It's
anything
part
in
of
between?
it, man.
So it's always part of a wider puzzle, is it?
Yeah.
Right.
So mostly the debate surrounds the impressive inking fort of Sacsayhuaman.
Sacsayhuaman.
Sacsayhuaman, which isn't Sacsayhuaman, it's Sacsayhuaman, which is what you're thinking about, the interlocking stones.
Right.
And we're going to get into that as a big part of this episode, because it's just so intriguing and so cool. If anyone doesn't know what that is, you're going to find out.
Nice.
So experts today can't agree exactly how the ancients were able to accomplish this feat of engineering. Some have cited alien intervention, Others think it was done through a vast network of mirrors and lenses to concentrate sunlight. The theories just keep growing and getting weirder and weirder. The only thing anyone can agree on for certain is how impressive it is. More on Sacsayhuaman later. But first, what is vitrified stonework? So have any of you guys heard of what vitrified stonework is?
I have no clue.
Is it like dry stone walls? Not quite.
It's to do with walls, and it's well, we'll get into it right now. So vitrification is essentially the process of transforming any substance into glass. It happens when the materials in question are heated to a point that they are turned into liquid and then rapidly cooled, cooling that liquid into a solid. So vitrified stonework then is stonework that could only be achieved by superheating rock, usually volcanic basalt, and then rapidly cooling it to achieve the effect of the stones being melted together.
That's crazy.
This is understandably a massive achievement, but it wasn't impossible with the technologies of the ancients. There are over 50 examples of vitrified stonework in Scotland, but there's also a few examples found in Ireland and England. There's also examples in Malta, Egypt, Sudan, Iraq and Southeast Asia. We know from radiocarbon dating that the forts built in Scotland were made around 700 to 300 BC, right in the middle of the British Iron Age. Melting rocks to serve man's purpose was not a new concept to the ancients at all by this time. In fact, in order to produce the forts in Scotland, one would only need to superheat the rock to about 1,100 degrees centigrade. This was well within the technological bounds of the time, sort of, because the reason it's a bit weird is because these rocks were massive. So to superheat something to 1,100 degrees, which is pretty easy, it's like a kiln. It's how you make
you'd think that like if you was like a blacksmith, say in a blacksmith's fire, that'd be more achievable.
Yeah,
you know, it's a very confined space. It's easy to sort of have diction over how hot you make that, but if you're talking about like a boulder that's like several tons,
yeah, man,
like, you know, what do you do? Just like light a fire underneath it? Like, that's not going to work.
This is the reason that they say the technology is lost to the human race now, because we do not know how they did it. Because now we can't really build a kiln that's like
that big,
that huge still. Like,
so it's just one of those mysteries that are lost to time.
Yeah. So going into it, so like, the problem is most curious ancient vitrified examples are found on objects that are so large that they cannot be placed in a furnace. The vitrification process itself is quite a mystery. A team of chemists on Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World subjected rock samples from 11 different forts to rigorous chemical analysis. They concluded that the temperatures needed to produce the vitrification were up to 1,100 degrees, which we said. Simply burning the walls with wood interlaced with stone could not achieve such temperatures. Recent experiments along these lines have had virtually no success at all. So the problem is only exacerbated when you travel to South America. Ooh. South America, baby!
Do you mind if I just interject with something quickly? You know, we've been talking recently, because we've been watching the House of the Dragon series, haven't we? So in the George R.R. Martin universe, so they say, so Dragonstone, which is where, at the moment, I think it's not Daemon Targaryen's anymore, is it? It started off in the series, that's where Daemon Targaryen was, King Viserys' brother, but I'm not sure who's occupying. Rhaenyra is occupying it currently, the heir to the throne. But in the Game of Thrones universe, they say that the Targaryens would build their castles like that with dragonfire, and that dragonfire was the only thing. So Dragonstone, the location in George R.R. Martin's universe is it's all what did you say it's called again?
Vitrified
stone. So
it's turned into glass,
and that's how they explain it in that. But obviously, a lot of the things that like with a lot of fantasy, George R.R. Martin gets his inspiration from a lot of things. But it's it's interesting how he's using fantasy to fill in the gaps, and also apparently Old Valyria, which is where all the Targaryens are supposed to have come from before the collapse of Valyria when they moved to Westeros. Apparently everywhere like that, it was all fused. All the stone was fused with dragon. Dragonfire.
And it's so cool because I've always been really interested in like these Peruvian artifacts and temples and everything of this stone where it's all like fitted together, which we'll see in a minute. But like, I didn't realize it was vitrified, so I didn't realize it was like this fused togetherness of the stones. It's like, I thought it was just they somehow carved it and somehow done it and fit it together like that, but it is actually vitrified stone, so it was heated beyond this 1,100 degrees, which is pretty crazy.
It's crazy how it seems to be such common practice as well. From like the
around
amount
the
of different places that you were saying, it seems.
And that's what I mean.
Like
I didn't realise that there was examples in Scotland and around different parts of Asia, Europe, Iraq, and all that stuff.
That is actually very interesting, isn't it? I think there's somebody like in Iran and Scotland and Peru could have all had these insane heating techniques
for their stonework
3,000 years ago, around that sort of time. It's crazy.
Like it was global knowledge, but then that global knowledge still went on to get lost somehow.
It reminds me a little bit of Greek wildfire. So apparently the Byzantines had this, and I think this, I think in Game of Thrones they use what's it called, wildfire, and they use that in actually the original Game of Thrones series. There's that, I think it's the Stannis Baratheon's army are invading King's Landing. Do you remember?
That green stuff.
And they use the wildfire. It's like green fire, and apparently it's like more like a bomb than it's almost fire, because that's how powerful and like combustible it is. So apparently the Greeks actually had, or the Byzantines actually had something like that. And when they would go to their navy, essentially had this Greek wildfire. And rather than shooting cannons, which obviously happened later on, like you see like in the Napoleonic Wars, or shooting arrows, like which was commonplace obviously around that time also, they had this Greek wildfire, and they would, with almost like flamethrowers, they would shoot out this Greek wildfire and set fire to vessels. But apparently it was so flammable that it would set fire to the ocean. And so, like, what I mean is like, not set fire to the ocean. You know what I'm saying? So it was so hot that its path, would be on fire in the ocean. So it was just devastating to their enemies.
That's
they were
crazy.
just completely just destroyed. But
viscous.
Nobody knows how they did it. And like people have like historical.
So it's like a lost liquid.
It's like it's a lost substance. So people there have been like guys that are engineers that are also fascinated in history, that have almost like devoted their lives to trying to create Greek wildfire, and they have not been able to do it. Another thing which is a bit like that is Roman cement. So Roman cement was so good, essentially, for lack of a better word, that it could dry underwater. So Romans could make walls going right out into rivers or the sea, and the cement would dry. It was set underwater, and people don't know how the Romans did that. So there's several instances of these like amazing feats.
Surely they could, where you've actually still got Roman cement, you could like back engineer it or look at the properties of it and see.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Do you know what I mean?
I would like to. You'd think that it would be that simple, but they haven't. Yeah,
that's crazy, man.
Yeah, I think there are still examples of it. You see, like walls going out into seas in certain places, like in Spain and other places in Europe, but they don't know how they did it.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
So these forts that we're talking about with the crazy stones dot the Peruvian mountainside. Stones hundreds of feet tall are piled up together, seeming to fit together as if they were made to do so. Even with 1,000 years of weathering, they still shine like polished glass. The stonework is so skillful, in fact, that you can't slip a sheet of paper between the stones. Pretty crazy. And so here's a picture of Sacsayhuaman, which we're going to be talking about today.
Sacsayhuaman,
which is like you can kind of see the stones and how they're all different shapes.
Yeah, do you know, that's one of the things I was going to say. I find it really interesting how there's no obviously nowadays you would just a builder would buy a load of bricks. They'd all be exactly the same size. You build a house. Like on the one hand, the engineering feats obviously is like insane, but it's almost like, to me it seems random that all the stones are random sizes.
Well, yeah,
like a huge game of Tetris.
But then there's lots of people, which we'll go into a bit later, like saying that they represent certain constellations and things like that. So there is
the size of the stones,
and the shapes and all of that kind of thing, which you wouldn't really see. But they're saying that
because it's really neat.
And
but
what they
also
even say,
random.
what they would even say is that it represents a language. So like if you deciphered the language of the stones, of the shapes, then it would be the way that they communicate.
That's deep,
which is like pretty crazy. But yeah, that's cool for anyone watching on kind of YouTube.
So how would that be like a language?
We'll get into it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if we'll get into that specifically, but yeah. So just another. So it's said that Sacsayhuaman was initially built by a pre-Incan civilization called the Kalik.
Never heard of them.
Then, when the Incas dominated the area, centuries later, they made their capital Cusco, which is the second biggest city in Peru, next to it, with the shape of a puma's body, leaving Sacsayhuaman as its head. So this is just another picture. So you'll see the stones with a man in front, so you can kind of get how big it is. Like when see the dude just like compared to the size of the guy.
So that must be like 20, 30 tons.
Yeah. Oh no, like 200 tons.
Whoa.
Yeah, like crazy.
What?
200 tons.
Yeah, and also what you can also see as well, and this is the picture. So they say that Cusco is in the shape of a puma. Can you kind of see that all in the yellow there?
100%.
And,
I mean, the head looks a bit horsey, but I understand.
Because they think it's.
I'm being very critical for it.
but it's cool that Sacsayhuaman is actually that part that is the head. So it's like up in there, and then that's Cusco, like making the body.
That's so cool.
And I'll tell you a little bit about Cusco, because it's like Cusco's an interesting city as well. And lots of this stonework is found in Cusco as well. So in the ancient Quechua language, the name of this city means navel of the world. Cusco rises 3,400 meters above sea level, and according to official archaeology, the first human settlements date back to around 3,000 years. The whole city seems to have been built according to a plan in the form of a puma, the sacred animal of the Incas, the protector of earthly goods. That's what they In his famous book, Comentarios Reales de las Incas, one of the first accounts of Inca history and of the Spanish conquest, the writer Garcilaso de la Vega wrote in 1609 about the region of Cusco, with dimensions so inconceivable that one would have thought that a magician had directed the construction. That they were the work of demons rather than human beings, made of stones so huge and so numerous that one wonders how the Indians would have been able to achieve them.
Do you know what I think is really cool about that as well? So obviously when the Europeans went over to America, at least on face value, we were so much more advanced. So obviously we had guns, they didn't. They didn't even really have like advanced metalworks in terms of like the weapons that the South Americans used were mainly glass, obsidian, and in North America were still a lot of them were even using like stone in some cases. So we had like massive navy ships, cannons, guns. Obviously would have had much more. I guess in terms of how we see it,
metallurgy of steel and stuff was like more advanced as well.
And how, in terms of how we see it, way better literature. We would have had like insane, immense libraries in Europe, which would have been just as impressive as any you'd find today. But then, meanwhile, a Spaniard or a Brit could have gone to one of these places and been like in complete awe, you know. But we would have had like massive palaces, as I said, in Europe, like massive cathedrals, palaces, but still been in complete awe. I think that's really fascinating.
And the fact that they would have met the Incan people, but all of these, when you speak to the Incan, this is pre-Incan, so it's like a lost civilization.
That reminds me a little bit of when Hippocrates asked the Egyptians how they built the pyramids, and they said they learnt to build the pyramids from an older civilization to the west. That's like just so that's just so ominous, isn't it? Like which civilization? And to this day, historians don't know what civilization that was. Just some civilization to the west of Egypt.
Atlantis. So that they were racing. You missed it. Since they knew neither iron nor steel to cut or unpolish the rock, nor oxen nor wagons to transport them. So it's basically saying like they didn't have anything to do this stuff. They didn't have. How did they even move the rock? And just the rest about Cusco. In the old buildings of Cusco, the stones of green diorite, a particularly hard to work mineral, are assembled without any type of cement. They are crafted so precisely that they adhere perfectly to each other, preventing a credit card from slipping through. It is difficult to think that the Incas, a people who apparently did not possess advanced technologies, it seems that they did not even know the wheel, which is pretty crazy, could have made such extraordinary architectural works and managed to meld stones as if it would have been a question of working wax, giving it the strangest shapes and developing an ingenious and very solid system of embedding blocks in the shape of a polygon. In addition, this construction technique was more refined than the methods used in the same period in Europe, although the old continent was decidedly more evolved from a scientific and technological point of view. Exactly what you just said, basically.
That's, yeah.
When the Spanish colonizers arrived in the area, they knocked down many Inca and Kalik constructions to use the materials for their own buildings. But the story was different when they faced the walls of Sacsayhuaman, because the rocks were so big they could not move them at all. And I've been to Cusco, and it's pretty weird because you've got like all of these rocks that fit together like this are like basically like the foundations of all the buildings. So the Cusco city is like a very Spanish looking city, the way that the streets are formed and everything. But basically they knocked off all the stuff that they could from the top, but the actual bases to the buildings and everything were so huge and so like thing that it would have been too much work to knock them down, so they just built on them. So like luckily we can still now see all this, but they destroyed what they could. But they were so like they were so big that even the Spanish, when they got there, they couldn't just rebuild everything. They had to build on top of what was already there.
Didn't you say that you could, like, when you went there, you could see the sort of Spanish that buildings on top, and you could tell it just wasn't as good?
Yeah, exactly. So all of these perfect stones, and then they almost try and do it on it, but it just looks like a child's version of it on top to kind of keep it in keeping.
You see that in Egypt as well. Like the later Egyptian civilizations, obviously tried to build pyramids, or in some cases built pyramids on top of pre-existing pyramids that had deteriorated, and it's like you can see it's almost like a line in the sand of like really, really good, not so good.
Yeah.
You know.
So how did the Kalik or Incan people do it? Nobody is really sure. Researchers have been throwing out all sorts of theories for years. The most popular theory, lol, is that aliens somehow came down and gave the Inca the technology to create Sacsayhuaman. Unless you're a conspiracy theorist, this really doesn't hold water.
I think it's just too easy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
Who knows?
But like,
Who knows?
you know, it screams to me pre-civilization that we don't know much about.
Yeah, I was going to say what I think more is it goes into Graham Hancock and Big Beardy.
Randall Carlson.
Randall Carlson's theory is more of that society was, or you know, ancient civilization was probably more advanced than we realise, and that maybe there was some sort of cataclysm. Doesn't need to be like, you know, as big as say like the K2 extinction, obviously, which wiped out the dinosaurs, but some sort of event, whether it was a meteor impact or something like that.
The Great Flood.
We know that there was an ice age about 11,000 years ago, and traditional history tells us that it was sort of at the end of the ice age that we started becoming advanced. But what if we were more advanced before that? We know that Homo sapiens first evolved about 200,000 years ago. That's a lot of time. 190,000 years, which is basically like left unaccounted for.
And basically, if you dropped one of us, or like if 150,000 years ago, like the computational thing of the brain, is that correct as well?
What? So like, so a brain of a Homo sapien 1,000 years ago would be no different than the brain of a Homo sapien now. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, or even further back than that.
Yeah. So it's it's almost like assuming that for so long Homo sapiens were just sitting around, sort of just being
monkeys.
Yeah, which is obviously just weird to think in a way, because if you've got a big enough brain, it's not going to take you 190,000 years to start picking stuff up, is it? Like literally, and
we'll just look at how fast we've evolved.
Yeah, man.
Like our lives have evolved so fast
technologically.
Like even in the past, like
when me and Drew were little kids, there was only 4 TV channels. No internet, nobody.
Even an idea of a phone. I remember my dad had a Motorola brick that was like massive.
Yeah, and that's just in our lifetime. Do you know what I mean? We're only 32.
Yeah. You know? So imagine them just not innovating for 200,000 years.
Well,
that almost seems
190.
Like,
yeah.
That just seems like unbelievable, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think I remember when I first heard that theory, like a long time ago. My very first reaction was like, probably not very likely. But then obviously, the more I heard about it, the more I looked into it, I was like, do you know what? I went from thinking like probably unlikely to actually very, very likely, to now I actually think, like I think it's really plausible. Yeah. And there's so many ancient mysteries that just sort of point to that. As I said, whether it's these Incan civilizations, whether it's the Egyptian civilizations, all of these ancient mysteries, it makes me think, you know, it's and as time is going on, and archaeologists are finding more things which just
Baffle.
Which
Baffle
seems
the historical.
It's like traditionally it was
timeline.
like the ancient Egyptians were like that when big sort of impressive structures started. Well, it's insane to think that people went from hunter-gatherers to essentially building great pyramids overnight. And also, as I said, the Egyptians themselves told Socrates. Sorry, I think I said earlier on it was Hippocrates. It was Socrates. It sounds so similar, doesn't it? Socrates, that it was built to a civilization to the west. That's what they had in their sort of history, in their oral history that was passed down from generation to generation. So,
and it's almost like the Egyptians' like timeline as well. Like they devolved technologically. Like they were almost better at the start, and then they devolved.
It's like they devolve, and then it gets to about sort of the Renaissance period in Europe. Well, not in all cases. Obviously, Rome was very advanced, and so was ancient Greece. But then it's like, at least from how we think of things where we are in Europe, then it's only really around the Renaissance period that we start to really pick up technologically. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so other people have suggested that the ancients had atomic wars which fused their thoughts together to form the vitrified surface that we see today. So they could almost harness like nuclear like fusion.
Yeah.
However, none of the sites we have today in Peru or Scotland or anywhere else where the stonework is vitrified have any evidence to support this theory. The sites are not radioactive and the chemical testing doesn't match up. So yeah, I mean, like the half-life of radiation is like thousands of years. Like, so you'd still see remnants of it, but you don't. Others have thought that perhaps the stone was cut and moved, but then was fused together because of a forest fire or an intense battle. Many researchers have tried to prove this is possible on test walls, but have failed. Another outlandish theory suggests that the Inca used a series of complex mirrors and lenses to harness the sun's rays to create enough heat to melt the stone, but this seems highly overcomplicated and unlikely.
That's quite a cool theory.
Unlikely.
I like
it. Unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool theory, but surely you would
Like
have to have
so
such an
powerful.
insane magnifying glass.
And you'd almost need to put like glass on glass on glass on glass on glass
to enhance it.
That reminds me of another theory. I can't remember. I think this was also the Greek civilization. There's like in some document somewhere, there's like a drawing of what looks like. I believe it's Greeks using like a massive magnifying glass. So, but I don't know, roughly I guess like 6 foot by 6 foot, and burning attacking ships from like a cliff with this high-powered, like setting fire to the sails,
like a laser
using
beam.
it.
That's crazy.
But historians don't know whether the document that the drawings are from is like fanciful or if it's actually like historical, an accurate historical
unless
account.
they like tried to recreate
They
it.
have tried. You know what was it called? There was that program, and it was like
Mythbusters.
That's it.
Yeah.
They tried it on Mythbusters, and I think they did manage to achieve it, but they basically said that it would be like pretty rubbish in terms of it had to be on the material. So they put like a little ship, like a raft out to sea, and they did it. But it took like so long. They were saying realistically, if you were trying to like fight off an invasion with it, it'd be pretty rubbish.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I do. For some reason, that almost seems more believable to me than the forest fire, though. Because think how hot 1,100 degrees is. For it to just get that from like a nearby forest fire.
Yeah, I think most ovens go up to like 240.
Yeah,
I think degrees, which that's like so hot.
Yeah,
like think about like your oven when it's like its highest temperature.
Yeah, and like kilns like that. My mum's got a kiln, and she, that goes up over 1,000 degrees.
Wow,
but it's just
I didn't know they went that hot.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, I'll have to double check.
I watched a movie
I
recently.
think it goes over 1,000 degrees.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I watched a movie recently, and like it was about a serial killer who disposed of his bodies in a kiln. He made out he was like a potter, but he wasn't even a potter. He just had what looked like a pottery workshop with loads of pots all on the walls. But really, he was just like this killer, and he would just put every single, their clothes, their ID, their what, and because it just grinds everything to ash, and then he would just flush their ashes down the toilet.
Whoa,
crazy!
But it makes sense now. If it goes over 1,000 degrees, like nothing's gonna survive that.
Yeah, no odor or anything.
No, nothing. Not even like any substance that would be possibly incriminating.
So yeah, they think this is unlikely with the big glass
magnifying
glass. If they had such a system, wouldn't they have written about it somewhere? It seems like it would be a huge scientific achievement worth writing down for prosperity.
I just think as well, as I said, the glass would have to be so thick to reach 1,000 degrees. Like how thick would you need that glass?
Yeah. Is that how it works? The thicker it is, the hotter it would get?
Yes, because it's more magnified, isn't it? The thicker the glass is, the more magnified it is.
Right.
So scribing. So this is a theory that's more plausible. The only plausible theory that has been submitted was developed by a man named John Macaulay. He's a retired architect and construction manager and had researched ancient construction techniques for over 40 years. His hypothesis is centered around the wisdom and ingenuity of the Inca and other ancient people. His theory states that the Inca probably used a system called scribing, or basically template making, to create the interlocking system of megalithic stones that we see at Sacsayhuaman. He believes that the Inca moved the huge pieces of rock up to the site and carved and polished them right there on the hill. In order to create stones that fit so perfectly together, they would carefully measure the space they need and create a wooden template. This template would then be applied to another stone that sort of fit the shape, and the stone would be shaped and polished to match the template. Of course, this means that the Inca would have to be extremely accurate stonemasons. We know that they possessed a lot of knowledge of mathematics and science, and that they were very accurate at stone carving. Still, this theory seems almost a little too far-fetched. The stones at Sacsayhuaman are huge. The precision needed to create a wall with no mortar, where you can't even slip a piece of paper in between the cracks at any point, even with templates, chiseling and polishing would have been extremely difficult and taken an inordinate amount of time. The other problem with this theory is that the stone has been vitrified. Even with the cutting and polishing, the builders still would have had to fit these huge megalithic stones in an equally megalithic furnace and vitrify them at temperatures around 1,100 degrees. This, of course, would have messed with the precise carving, and because I suppose they would change a little bit when they're heated up like that if they become vitrified.
A bit squidgy.
Yeah, they mess it. And if the stones had been carved after being vitrified and polished, then we would see obvious tool marks on the stone where the glass-like surface was cut away. Still, it is the best theory we have so far. It's crazy that is literally the best theory that all science and everything has for how they did it. And it is the only one that doesn't sound like wacky conspiracy too. Does that make it correct? Not at all. In all likelihood, we'll never know how fortresses like Sacsayhuaman were constructed. There simply isn't enough evidence to know. The one thing we have to remember when we're looking at the incredible structures like Stonehenge or Sacsayhuaman or the pyramids is that the ancients were not just cavemen. They were not any more or less intelligent than we are. They were human just like us and incredibly ingenious and resourceful. Enough so that they create huge feats of engineering with primitive technology that we, with all of our computers and microchips and science, are still struggling to understand.
I think that's like, that saying, like, everything is in the eye of the beholder. I think it's, like, from our point of view, we see intelligence and, like, sophistication as, like, iPads, internet, speaking to somebody over the phone, whereas there's more ways more ways than one to skin a cat, so to speak. So like they might have had a completely different idea, or they would have had a completely different idea of what being an advanced civilization would be. Because I said, it's all in the eye of the beholder, and you only know what you know. To us, this is being advanced. To them, that was being advanced. They might not have had the skills that we had, but we obviously
don't have theirs.
We clearly don't have those skills as well.
And like some would say that it's more advanced to think of leaving a legacy that stands the test of time compared to the things that we have created, like technologically, like with phones and all of that. If you turn the internet off, or that stuff can just be lost and. But that's thousands of years ago, and they're still standing through all the earthquakes, through all the different changes in the world. They're still just there, like making us like, what the hell is that? Yeah,
it's almost like as architecture is advanced through the ages, it's become way more. The focus has been on like quantity over quality. Whereas if you think like 1,000 years ago, even more so 2,000 years ago, even more so 3,000 years ago, there would have been way less buildings on the planet, but the ones that were erected were way more just way more impressive, way more time and effort went into it. Whereas you see nowadays, a new housing estate's built, most fully grown men could frickin' put their hands through the walls. You can hear your neighbour through the walls. It's not that same quality. You hear about, the electricians rush the electrics, and then sometimes you can buy like a brand new house and the electrics are already like weird, or the plumbing's all askew. Whereas if you look at, like, I think that's one of the reasons why it's really nice you go to look at a nice cathedral or something. You appreciate the art behind it, and you know the effort that was put into it. This was like a building that took maybe hundreds of years just to build, from thousands of different builders and artisans, and it's like a work of art as well as just a building achievement. It's not just, right, we'll get the brickies in, and then we'll get some plasterers in, and then we'll get some electrics. Just quick, because we're on a deadline, you know what I mean? Got to get this housing estate done so that more people can move in. And it's almost like a bit sad in a way.
Yeah,
Do
man.
you know what I mean? And I think that's why people appreciate, if you want like a really nice house, you're not necessarily like
gonna buy a new one.
Yeah, unless you're like super rich and you can build it yourself maybe and make sure that
specification.
Yeah, and you can make sure that quality is going to be put into it. Really, if you buy like a 200 or 300 year old house, it's probably going to be better, or at least the bones of the house are going to be better than a house that was built 10 years ago.
Yeah, and they look so quirky and cool anyway. Like you look in the old pubs and everything. It's just it's so much more interesting to see that than just a flat white wall,
Yeah, super sturdy beams and brick, like thick stone walls and everything.
Another in another part of Peru as well, something that really impressed me when I was over there was in Nazca, which is one of the driest parts of Peru. It just looks like really. Like
isn't that where the lines are? Those mental artworks,
you've
the Nazca
got the
lines.
massive Nazca lines, which
That's
are
crazy,
like you can only see from
They're
the
a mystery
sky.
as well, aren't they?
They're
What
a
are
mystery. So they're
Drawings,
shapes and drawings of different. There's like one. There's one that looks like a spacesuit. There's
one that looks like a bird.
Right.
One that's like bird. Like loads of different stuff. But basically, on the kind of flat plains of the land, they've carved or somehow like just taken away the top layer of the rock.
So it's like white underneath. So the top layer looks black.
But they've done it in a way that they know that even with the wind, it's not gonna go. And I can't remember, there was some chemical process or something, something to do with that rock there. That
some
means
sort of like
that
acidic
it can't,
property or something.
Yeah, it can't be blown away. But
Whoa.
all it is like...
They're essentially massive drawings. At first, when people just walked the land for until we had planes, people just thought that they were random lines in the sand. With
but when
sand.
you
It's
go
not
up
sand.
high enough...
But when obviously planes were invented, people started going planes, they realised that they were massive drawings essentially. But then the whole idea is like A, they're super accurate drawings, and B, it's almost like what they think that what it was that ancient civilizations were almost like making symbols to show to the gods. That's what
one of the guys that was there, who was like taking us on the tour, he also said that it was like pre-Incan civilizations, and they were there was one that was like a monkey, and it was like pointed that way towards the jungle of like
that's cool.
do you know what I mean? So he was saying that they were almost representing different peoples of the continent of
geography.
That's cool.
And it was almost like maps to where they are.
That's so cool. If you want to see monkeys, go that way. If you want to see a bird, mate, look up.
That's it, like the condor and stuff up in the Colca Canyon.
The mysterious condor.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Biggest land bird in the world now.
Is it?
Yeah, condor.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think it's got the biggest wingspan.
I thought it was the albatross.
It might be the second then. Yeah.
Huh?
land bird, I said, yeah.
Land bird.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So is it condor actually... Oh, so is the albatross the biggest overall, but the condor's the biggest land bird?
I think so.
I'm going to quickly look it up.
Yeah. And just while you're doing that, one of the other things that really impressed me about Nazca is, because like I was saying, it's so dry there, water, we all need water to survive and everything. There's these ancient aqueducts that are still used in Nazca today that basically tap into all of the underground rivers that you've got lots of water in Nazca, but it's all underground. It's all in these like underground like rivers. They've created aqueducts that basically provide water to the different towns and cities across Nazca, like the area, and they still use them today. And it's pure free water
That's so
just
cool.
like pure from the depths of the mountains in the Andes. It comes down from, and it's really cool how they knew how did they know where those underground rivers were? How did they know how to make aqueducts and to feed all of their people like that? And for free. It's just like, okay, we need this to survive.
Well, I think it's like so amazing when you think the fact that like the Romans, I mean, obviously that's 2,000 years ago, so not as ancient as what we're talking about now, but even the fact they had just like underfloor heating, and hot taps.
Yeah,
like I just think it's crazy. I think we have this idea of
not
like
done with electricity.
we know that obviously Rome had impressive architecture because you can go there today and still see the remnants of the Colosseum and all that. But just the idea that you could just be on like a cold night, you're like, you're just barefoot. Oh man, toes are nice and toasty. Because even today, if you walk into like a place, like if you stay in a place that's got underfloor heating, like I'm a bit like, it's just swanky.
Yeah.
Because most places don't, do they? By the way, so it's very close. The Andean condor has a maximum mass of 14.9 kilograms. The wandering albatross, 16.1. So the wandering albatross is a bit bigger, but I guess,
What about wingspan-wise?
Wingspan, it says that in total length centimetres, wandering albatross is 107 to 135. Condor is 100 to 130. So, again...
Both pretty big.
Yes.
I think it's so easy to forget nowadays as well, like how knowledgeable they would have been. Like if I look at what we do nowadays, for example, this is just an analogy of how easily we just forget things nowadays. You look at sports, for example. A player could have a really good season, but they have one bad game, and all that everyone will remember is that one bad game. But I think looking back now, we've almost forgotten just how advanced they might have been. But like you were saying, we need to really actually look back and go, this is actually pretty mental.
All these things are like testament to that,
exactly.
These kind of forgotten technologies, because they still don't know how they did that with the aqueducts and stuff as well. They just somehow know how to do it. But I'll just so the last bit then, like on Sacsayhuaman, is about kind of the rocks and the kind of properties of how they're laid out and stuff. So on the esplanade at the top of the monument, rocks have been identified which appear to be ancient foundations characteristic of polygon-shaped geometric planes. No one has come up with a definitive answer as to the meaning of these enigmatic ruins, or what these foundations rested on. It is believed that what remains visible today represents only 30% of all that had been once erected in Sacsayhuaman. Indeed, centuries of plunder have left the fortress...
No pun intended.
have left the fortress with only what could not be taken away, the stones. So it's like the Spanish thing. They could only knock down so much and take so much. The complex is in perfect alignment with the 4 cardinal points, and the intersecting walls with the 3 circles at the top are an ideal orientation for determining the winter and summer solstices. This leads to speculation that the Sacsayhuaman fortress was really an astronomical observatory. How were the Incas, or perhaps the pre-Incan Callique people, capable of achieving work of such significance?
That's like Stonehenge, isn't it? Exactly the same as Stonehenge.
Could it all point back to an ancient past about which we know nothing?
There seemed to be such an emphasis on buildings and astronomy back in the day, or seasons.
Astronomy, seasons, like hats off to the way the sun
summer
moves.
Solstice, winter solstice, and stars essentially.
Another mystery of Sacsayhuaman is its underground tunnels, known as shinkanas. Built by the ancient civilization, we know not of the tunnel's purpose. There are old documents that mention the tunnels of Sacsayhuaman as large underground labyrinths. Some people believe that they connect Sacsayhuaman with other cities. There are even legends about them leading to underground chambers with unimaginable treasures. That is why many people went to explore inside of them, but oftentimes never came back. For this reason...
Indiana Jones style.
Yeah, man. For that reason, the entrance to most tunnels have been closed since the 1920s, except for a short one called Shikana Shika, which connects to 2 known areas of the ancient citadel. So a lot of them have just been closed off, so we don't know anything about all the underground labyrinths under there and stuff as well, which is like pretty mad.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
That was that.
That was an interesting mystery, man.
Yeah,
that was
man.
awesome.
I love Peru.
Any takeaway thoughts, Henry?
I don't know. Definitely does sound like a mystery. I mean, I can't think of any solutions.
Yeah. That's one of the intriguing things, isn't it? I'll say most of the mysteries that we talk about is there's not really any way of coming to an answer.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it so fascinating, isn't it? Right, so let's wrap up the show then, guys. This has been the first Mystery Mondays on DAB on Aspen Waite Radio. Hope you've enjoyed it, everybody. We will be back next Monday with another fascinating mystery. We're going to be getting pretty dark and gruesome on the lead up to Halloween, of course. Oh my. So yeah, have a good evening, everyone. Thanks for chilling with us. We'll be back next time.
Ta-ta for now.
Ta-ta for now.
Adios.
Mm-hmm.